Hello everybody and welcome to your Unit 1, Lesson 2. Today we are going to continue with our talk about ecosystems, and we're going to kind of define and identify different terrestrial and aquatic biomes. So you guys should have already had your guided notes downloaded, so this lesson corresponds with the notes on terrestrial and aquatic biomes. What I'm going to do is split this lecture into two different videos. So terrestrial and aquatic, but they both go with the same lesson, so lesson 2. So we're going to go ahead and just jump right into it. As a reminder, your guided notes need to be filled out, and then you will turn those in the day before your unit test for a formal grade. So after this lesson, you'll be able to explain how we define terrestrial biomes, interpret climate diagrams, and identify the 9 terrestrial biomes. So there are 9 we have to know. So let's start out by talking about the difference between a terrestrial and an aquatic biome. So terrestrial biomes are regions that are categorized by a combination of annual temperature, precipitation, and then also distinctive plant growth, and these are on land. So terrestrial biomes are land biomes, so think desert, forest, tundra, things like that. And then aquatic biomes are aquatic regions characterized by a combination of salinity, which is how much salt is in the water, depth, and then water flow. So aquatic biomes will be things like lakes, rivers, and oceans. But right now we're focusing on terrestrial biomes. So here's the distribution of different terrestrial biomes across the world. What you should be able to do is look at a map and kind of understand where these biomes are. And this is a really great depiction for that because all of the biomes are color-coded and then you can see where they are. And then if you see where we are, we're in North Carolina, so we are in the temperate seasonal forest. So that is our biome where we live. And then again, we're going to be able to define these biomes by their rainfall, so yearly average rainfall, as well as their temperatures year-round. We have to know how to read these climate diagrams because they do illustrate patterns of our temperature and precipitation. So once you know the distinctions between the terrestrial biomes, you should be able to look at a diagram, notice the patterns, and then based on these climate diagrams, tell me which terrestrial biome it corresponds with. So if we take a look on our x-axis on these climate diagrams, we have our months of the year, okay? And then the shaded region indicates the growing season when temperatures are above 0 degrees Celsius. So growing season would be like when plants are growing and we have vegetation. We've got two different y-axes here that we have to pay attention to. So on the left-hand side, we've got the average temperature in degrees Celsius. And then that's depicted by the red line here. And then on the right-hand side, again on the y-axis, it's the double y-axis, so we have to pay attention. The average precipitation in millimeters per year. Okay, so the blue line is the precipitation. And again, these are corresponding with months of the year. And then the red line is the average temperature. So this blue line, when the precipitation line is above the temperature line, plant growth is limited by the temperature. Okay. So depending on if we've got ample precipitation, obviously plants have enough water. One of the components of photosynthesis, they can grow. But if the precipitation line is above temperature, this is going to be our indication that that plant growth is actually limited by the temperature, because that's going to really be determining what kind of plant growth we're getting. Okay. On the other hand, when the precipitation line is below the temperature line, plant growth is going to be limited by that precipitation. Okay. So basically, we just have to be able to look at these and recognize patterns in these climate diagrams. And also be able to tell kind of what's going on. So here we can see that the rainfall all year round is actually higher than the average temperatures, right? So we would say that whatever this terrestrial biome is gets a good amount of rain all year round and often gets more rain than we do have higher temperatures. Okay, and then here we have our precipitation line dipping below the temperature. So here during these months, right? So from May to September, we've got higher temperatures and then lower precipitation. Our terrestrial biomes will range from tundra to tropical forest. So there are 9 we need to know about. So tundra Arboreal forest, temperate rainforest, temperate seasonal forest, woodland and shrubland, temperate grassland, or a cold desert, tropical rainforest, tropical seasonal forest, or savanna, and a subtropical desert, which sounds like a lot, but we'll get into them. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the tundra, and this is a cold and treeless biome with low growing vegetation. So it's cold, no trees. In the winter, the soil is completely frozen, and the tundra's growing season is very short, so usually only about 4 months during the summer. So the growing season is when vegetation is growing. The underlying subsoil is known as permafrost. Remember, most of it's frozen, and that's an impermeable, permanently frozen layer of soil. So tundras are very cold. And then here's the region of our tundra biome. And then here is the climate diagram. Again, so on a test, if I would give you this climate diagram and say, okay, so which biome does this correspond to, you would have to be able to tell me tundra, okay? And we see that the rainfall is pretty steady all year round. And then it is very cold. So if we look at the temperature here, we're at negative 10 degrees Celsius. And then during these 4 months in our summer months, we have the temperatures rising, and this is where we get vegetation growth. Arboreal forest is a forest biome made up primarily of coniferous evergreen trees that can tolerate cold winters and short growing seasons. So think like Christmas trees. They're found between 50 degrees and 60 degrees north in Europe, Russia, and North America. Okay, so these are going to be up north. This subarctic biome has a very cold climate. Plant growth is more constrained by temperature than it is precipitation. So the temperatures are going to be the big factor in determining what vegetation is growing. And then the soil is nutrient poor due to slow decomposition. So we have microbes in our soil that helps with decomposition, which leads to higher soil fertility, but in cold climates, that decomposition is slowed just because of the temperature. So the soils tend to not be as fertile. Okay, and here is our arboreal forest biome. So again, these are going to be found in places like Canada. Okay, so in North America, but we're not going to really find them in the United States. And here we've got precipitation is pretty steady all year. And then similar to our tundra, we've got just a few months in the summer where the temperature raises, but still between 10 and 20 degrees Celsius. It never gets extremely warm. A temperate rainforest is a coastal biome typified by moderate temperatures and high precipitation, okay? So moderate temperatures and then a lot of rain. These are found along the west coast of North America, from northern California to Alaska, southern Chile, on the west coast of New Zealand, and on the island of Tasmania. Ocean currents do moderate temperature fluctuations, and they do provide a source of water vapor, which leads to high precipitation. And then there's nearly a 12-month growing season where winters are rainy and summers are foggy. Mild temperatures and high precipitation support growth of very large trees. Okay, so think like Washington State in the United States and in Northern California, where there's a lot of really huge trees. And again, we've got high precipitation and moderate temperatures all year round. A temperate seasonal forest or a deciduous forest, this is where we live. This is a biome with warm summers and cold winters with over 39 inches or 1 meter of precipitation annually. These are found in the eastern U.S., Japan, China, Europe, Chile, and eastern Australia. These are dominated by broadleaf deciduous trees, so beech, maple, oak, and hickory trees. Warmer summer temperatures favor decomposition, and the soils are generally contain more nutrients than those of boreal forests. So in North Carolina, we do have agriculture. We do typically have fertile soils because we do live in a seasonal forest, a temperate forest, also known as a temperate deciduous forest. So you might see it both ways. And then here is our distribution. Again, we live in North Carolina, so this is the biome that we live in. And here is our climate diagram. Okay, so we do have cooler winters, colder winters, and then warmer summers. So you see this kind of dome shape. And then we have pretty steady rainfall all year. We don't have characteristic like seasons of rain. It's just kind of off and on and pretty moderate throughout the year. A woodland or a shrubland is a biome characterized by hot, dry summers and mild, rainy winters. So we'll be able to identify a woodland by those rainy winters. These are found on the coast of Southern California, Southern Australia, Southern Africa, and in the area surrounding the Mediterranean Sea. 12-month growing season, so plants grow all year, but plant growth is constrained by low precipitation in summer and relatively low temperatures in winter. Wildfires are common, and plants of this biome are well adapted to both fire and drought. The reason that wildfires are common here is because since there's a 12-month growing season, what happens is there's a lot of vegetation growth, and so it just winds up being a lot of underbrush. So if something catches fire, there's just a lot of material to actually allow for that kindling to catch and then lead to wildfires. Okay, so this is the woodland or the shrubland biome. Again, hot, dry summers. So we can tell because in the summer months, right, it's really hot. We're getting up there in temperatures, and then the precipitation is low. And then in the winter time, so November through January, February, there's more precipitation. So the precipitation ticks up in the winters and then is lower in the summer. A temperate grassland, or also referred to as a cold desert. This is a biome characterized by cold, harsh winters and hot, dry summers. So the lowest average annual precipitation of any temperate biome. These are found in the Great Plains of North America, so out west, in South America, and in Central Asia and Eastern Europe. Plant growth is constrained by both insufficient precipitation in summer and cold temperatures in the winter. And the plants out here include grasses, non-woody flowering plants, well adapted to wildfires, and frequent grazing by animals. Okay, so again, we've got cold winters, hot summers that are very dry, so we see that our temperatures are higher than our rainfall. A tropical rainforest is a warm and wet biome found between 20 degrees north and 20 degrees south of the equator, with a little seasonal temperature variation and high precipitation. So these average annual temperatures exceed 20 degrees Celsius, though it's very warm. Found in Central and South America, Africa, Southeast Asia, and Northeastern Australia. Precipitation occurs frequently, and it's warm and wet with little temperature variation. They contain more biodiversity per hectare than any other terrestrial biome, and they contain up to 2/3 of the Earth's terrestrial species. So tropical rainforests are very biodiverse. There's a lot of creatures. There's a lot of vegetation because really there's nothing to limit the growth of vegetation because it's warm and it's wet all year. Okay, and this is a climate diagram of a tropical rainforest. Again, really warm temperatures all year and typically a lot of rainfall. So we see down here from the shaded months that there's basically 12-month growing period. So vegetation is never really limited. A tropical seasonal forest, or a savanna, is a biome marked by warm temperatures and distinct wet and dry seasons. So these tropical seasonal forests are common in Central America, the Atlantic coast of South America, Southern Asia, and Northwestern Australia, and Sub-Saharan Africa. The soil in this biome is fertile and can be farmed due to high decomposition rates, but the low amount of precipitation constrains the plants from using the soil nutrients that are released. And then the grasses and scattered deciduous trees are common. So here we've got our savannas, and it's always easy to tell from a climate diagram where a savanna is because you've got these very distinct dry seasons and then wet seasons. So our precipitation line is low, then it peaks, and then it drops down again. A subtropical desert is a biome prevailing at approximately 30 degrees north and 30 degrees south, hot temperatures, dry conditions, and sparse vegetation. So Mojave Desert, Sahara. Plants common here are cacti, succulents, because they don't really need a lot of water. And again, this one would be very easy to identify because our precipitation is basically at 0 the whole year, and then temperatures are relatively high. And that's it for our terrestrial biomes, so we can jump into our next video for aquatic biomes to continue this lesson.